All right, I think that we can get started. Thank you so much to everyone who's joining us from around the US. I see some folks from international schools. We've got folks in a couple of different, we got folks from Puerto Rico, from London. This is very exciting. We're all really grateful that you're able to join us today. We'd love to start today just by doing quick introductions. I'm incredibly grateful to have two incredible innovators that have partnered with Coursedog and who I've learned so much from, Jen and Mark, joining us today. Jen, would you like to sort of introduce yourself and give a little background on yourself to the folks joining us today?
Sure. My name is Jennifer Creech. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Student Success and the Registrar here at Chaminade University in Honolulu. I recently moved here from Ohio, where I worked for 15 years at a different institution and came in May. So really just starting to onboard here, learn a lot. I had the privilege, it was a true blessing that I was able to launch a couple software platforms right away as soon as I arrived, and Coursedog was one of those.
Mark?
All right. I'm Mark Britton, originally from Kansas and now in Ohio, serving as a registrar at my alma mater, which is kind of a cool deal. So we've been here a little over 3 years. I've been a registrar full-time since 2007, assistant registrar before that, and been through the ropes quite a few times. Right now, I'm actually in New Jersey for my granddaughter's 6th birthday, and so I'm not used to these. Looks like I have a helicopter. I'm a helicopter parent there, kind of going on in the picture. Not that any of us have ever had one of those, right? Right now, we're standing up multiple pieces of software. We have Coursedog, a couple of things we're doing there. We have some things we're doing with our Illusion product. We have document imaging that we're doing. We're also have advising things, so forth. So it's been really, really hairy, but Coursedog has been phenomenal to work with, and by all means our favorite. So
well, thank you so much for the amazing words, Jen and Mark, and thanks again for joining today. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Justin Wenig. I'm co-founder and CEO of Coursedog. My story is about 3 years ago, I was a computer science student at Columbia University. Got frustrated while trying to enroll in the computer science classes I wanted to take, and spent a summer watching in shock as I watched this process of many universities of building the schedule and curriculum plans on Excel spreadsheets, PDFs, legacy sort of room scheduling solutions, and endeavored to build a better solution that is really focused on student success. And we'll talk a little bit more about where Coursedog is today in a little bit. Just some logistics about the webinar. So for all of you who are joining us, there are 2 different ways that you can interact with us throughout this presentation. The first is on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. There is a chat. If you have any questions for either Jen, Mark, or myself, feel free to put them in that chat. You also can use the Q&A, which we'll be able to have direct answers to your questions as it goes along. Because we have a pretty big attendance today, I don't know that we're going to get to everyone's questions, but we'll try to answer as many questions as we can and reserve as much time as we can at the end for questions, but we'll be answering questions throughout. So let's please make this interactive, and hopefully it'll be exciting for everyone. Awesome. So I'd love to start, just to give folks a rough overall agenda. Here we go. So today we're really going to talk about what does it look like to implement a single solution, with Coursedog. What are the reasons for it? What are the benefits? What are some examples that Jen and Mark have seen of success? And yeah, I think let's kick this off. Jen, do you want to give a little bit of background on Chaminade?
Sure. So Chaminade University is a private institution with roughly under 2,000 students in our undergraduate, graduate, and now doctoral programs. We are an Aleutian school, and we, at the time that we were looking at Coursedog, I was coming here from an institution where I had done 2 other curriculum kind of software implementations. The way that it was currently being done here was a paper process and a lot of meetings. And one of the things that really kicked us off into looking for something a little more streamlined was the fact that everybody was working remotely. We also had, and I'm sure other people have been through a similar transition where we had a registrar that had been here for 27 years and an office that just kind of went along and just did the work and never, they weren't really thinking like, what's the next step to make this easier? They were just kind of going through the process of what they had currently done that was working. So we were looking for something that was going to replace all of the paper. We were also looking for a product that we could give others access to the information. So at Chaminade, we really were the authority on a lot of information and on a lot of decisions that I would have said weren't ours to make. Somewhere along the line, we were blessed to make every decision and people just agreed with it. And they said, okay, well, the registrar said this. So what I have been trying to do is really put the decision-making back on the owners and then letting the registrar's office manage the process. And Coursedog has allowed us to do that through the catalog, with owners actually owning the content in the catalog, with the curriculum, with the people that want to change it. They actually can go through the process and change it. And then it notifies us, and then also events. So our room scheduling was our first real priority because we had room scheduling on one laptop and I couldn't even tell you how it worked. And the person that did it left. So I started like a Google Calendar to share rooms. I had no idea how we were going to do it. So Coursedog really to the rescue for that. Having been through 2 other implementations and working with other vendors, at my previous institution, I was always keeping an eye on Coursedog, and I was always looking at kind of what was up and coming. So when I moved here, I knew Coursedog was going to be the solution. And luckily people just said, okay, we'll do it. I didn't have to convince anybody. But people along the way have really bought into it to realize how easy it is and how user-friendly it is. But I was really looking for complete transparency in the process. So I didn't want papers to get shifted, decisions to be made, and then get lost along the way. And then just wait for the registrar's office to update something. I wanted everybody to see where everything was in the process and everybody to have access to it.
Thank you so much, Jen. Mark, would you care to give a little bit of background on Ashland?
Sure. Ashland, Ohio is Ashland University is a private Christian college in Ashland, Ohio. We actually have at least 8,000 students. We have a large contingent of correctional students, about 4,000 students that we are doing education out in the field in their prisons and cells and so forth. We've been around for quite some time, and we are a colleague, Datatel originally, then colleague, Lucian product and so forth. And while that's services us well, it also has some things that are just kind of clunky. And so we began to look at catalog software and also curriculum software. And I remember Googling and found Coursedog and was like, what is this? And I will say from the moment I met Justin, I was like, all right, I'm sold. Because he could speak our language and he was just so upfront and so accommodating and so forth. So anyway, we went through a committee process to look at getting a catalog program. And I know nobody's ever had this happen, but higher up decided that we needed a new event scheduling software. And so they said, well, this is what we're going to go with. We're going to go with Coursedog. And so we were able to bundle all those things together. And so we're standing that up right now. It'll go live probably in the next week. And along with our scheduling, we'll go live to the outside world next week as well. And then we're already working on curriculum and catalog and so forth. So the thing I love is it's like a full meal deal. You don't have to go to a whole bunch of different things, and it seems very familiar once you're in there and so forth. Our curriculum process and scheduling process is interesting. Usually what happens is the departments will send a Google spreadsheet if we're lucky, or an Excel spreadsheet with everything on it, at least that they think we need. And then there's everything that we really need that we have to go back to them for. And then it's not long till they begin to hound us about, I can't see our stuff in Colleague or out there. So where is it? And like Jennifer said, them being able to see what's happening in the process is going to be a great accomplishment and a great thing for them. We did have a little bit of pushback from faculty that were like, well, we don't have time to put all this stuff in and so forth. And I had to kind of reassure them that, you know, you're spending all this time right now putting it in a Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet. It's going to be the same thing. It's going to be easy. And then for my staff, who typically has entered everything, one person entering everybody's schedule, she is ecstatic about this happening and other people helping with that and so forth. And so we're looking so forward to this really being a great change for us to cut down on the paper shifting back and forth and the variety of the ways that we get the material and get the information. This will standardize it and all of those kinds of things. And give us also the opportunity to be able to look at some of our usage. You know, are we doing too many classes at one time of the day or not? Or how many sections of something do we have and so forth, which is always difficult. In my early days back in Kansas in a community college, and hi, Lori out there, who's out there as well. You know, we did scheduling on sticky notes on the wall and scheduled for about 3,000 students that way. And I was so glad to get out of the scheduling business. And now I'm excited to get into the scheduling business because this is easy comparison. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Mark. That's great context, and thank you, Jen. So I think we've covered a lot of this, but you know, some of the historical you know, pain points that I think both Chaminade and Ashland faced, you know, when sort of thinking about adopting a new curricular success solution or curriculum catalog scheduling event solution. A lot of what we hear comes down to the challenges when folks are using spreadsheets, when you have folks who are, maybe they have something on a laptop, maybe they've got a legacy scheduling system, but then there's a separate system for curriculum and catalog management, so the systems aren't connected. Just a lot of inefficiency, lack of visibility, right? The departments can't see their schedule, or people can't see where a curricular proposal is in a workflow. And I think, you know, part of the reason why Coursedog has grown a lot, for those of you that are joining, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, is so many schools in this new world are, you know, thinking about, okay, this is a great opportunity for us to really improve our business processes, to take advantage of this sort of remote first atmosphere, you know, and to standardize a lot of our business processes and just make things efficient, visible, and accurate in terms of data entry with the SIS. I don't know, Jen or Mark, I mean, I think you folks covered it super well, but was there anything else that you wanted to add here in terms of like a big pain point that caused you to sort of look for a solution?
I think one of the things that I would add here as we're talking about this is when we're talking about standardizing things, I would say going to a platform where you're able to pull data to show that there are barriers in place that prohibit student success. This platform gave us that platform to talk about that, where we had data to prove it. So standard meeting patterns is a huge one. we were able to identify all of the different patterns and to show where students weren't able to complete or go through degree progression because we had all of these different exceptions to the rule. In the past, when we would do it manually, somebody would just enter it in. Nobody would think about it. And now once we put it into the system and we could see, that was a really easy way to convince everyone that, hey, we need to go to standard meetings because we're on an island. We don't have more space. We're not going to have more buildings. We need to be able to maximize the space and the time to make sure we're optimizing everything. And this allowed us to do that. It also allowed us to, when I'm hiring individuals to work for my team, I'm not looking for people to process. I'm looking for strategic thinkers that are innovative, that have a lot of energy. And doing this work manually doesn't fit the description for who I'm looking for. So the ability to have others out and just do a little piece of it isn't so draining. And we're able to then utilize our team to think kind of beyond scheduling. Okay, what's next? What else can we be doing? As this is just more kind of a process. I think it just brought to light a lot of things that we know intuitively just from doing it so long, that we were able to kind of use data to support to make different decisions.
Yeah. One of the advantages that I see is that the way we've always entered our courses into our SIS was a multi-screen process. And so you would do this here, and then you had to go here and do this, and go here and do this, and go here and do that. And you hoped you got all those parts right, so it worked well. Where Coursedog brings that all together, and it's all on one form, and you just march through it, and you're done. Our corrections program has 54,000 sections. And that's not exaggeration, 54,000 sections, because they have many sections that they lump together and make a big class out of it. And so the thought of them entering it all in manually, repeatedly, and making sure somebody got all those things right, they were like screaming. And so this has been tremendous for them. And now we've always had the ability to roll over, although the university has never done that. But now we're going to utilize that within Coursedog. That makes it so much simpler and more straightforward to roll over for future semesters, particularly for the corrections program and so forth. So to me, it is just, well, I've said this before, and I don't know if Justin likes it or not, but your SIS is basically a pig. It's ugly. It's just whatever, but you have to have it. This is the lipstick on the pig. This is what makes what you're doing in your SIS really have a good and a fresh look to it and an ease to it that I have found that most vendors with SIS they would love to do something, but they just don't get there because that's a whole retooling of their system, where this sitting on top of it really makes a huge difference.
I think they're both amazing points. And I think that, Jen, one thing that I love that you mentioned is just sort of, what does it look like to have your staff not be focused on data entry, but to be focused on making your institution better, right? I think in Silicon Valley, in the tech, in the tech startup world, they always talk about have a lean, mean machine, right? I don't want my people doing things that aren't a good use of their time, or is that going to stop me from attracting top talent? Or, I want people to be focused on making this, Coursedog great, in the same way that I think by having your staff be able to focus strategically, look at reporting, think about these things, think about how much more you can do and how much better you can spend your time. So I love that point. And Mark, I think it's such the lipstick on a pig analogy, I think is great. I think while Coursedog is partners with many of these SIS systems, so I won't say whether they're pigs or not, it's totally, I think everyone can agree that doing a lot of these things natively in the SIS is so frustrating, right? Mm-hmm. That's not what the SIS is for. The SIS may be great at the heavy processing and the things in the background, but what about these core business processes like building a schedule that is really the number one thing that's going to decide, are your students going to be able to persist? Are they going to be able, is your staff going to be working strategically? And I think that's what Coursedog's really good at. So super helpful. So really quickly, for those of you that don't know Coursedog, I think I briefly told the story, but founded about a little over 3 years ago. We started by solving scheduling problem at Columbia. Today we have 5 products. The 4 that are really the core up until today have been curriculum and catalog, so updating courses, degree programs, publishing them to students on the online catalog, and then class scheduling and event scheduling, allowing you to create section scheduling policies, enact primetime rules, meeting pattern rules, and then optimize your schedule in the same place. We also just launched a new product, which we call Campus, which is a form and workflow automation product, which we're actually working with Jen on. So we're really excited about that. It allows schools to create any sorts of form and workflow process to automate change of majors or transfer requests, graduation, requests for graduation. So there's a lot of different use cases for this, and we're really excited about building it out. So a little bit about, I'll just share a little bit about why we see a lot of our schools adopt Coursedog all-in-one. So for those of you that, so Coursedog, we today work with almost 90 universities, and the vast majority of those actually use our solution in an all-in-one capacity. So they use it, some schools just have a scheduling product or a curriculum, but a lot of them want all these products to talk together. In Jen and Mark's case, that was very much a driver. And, I want to talk a little bit about why that a lot of folks see this as helpful. I think it really comes down to efficiency, visibility, and accuracy of data entry, right? Imagine having one screen to be able to see all your course information, section information, report across that information, be able to have a master calendar that's a single source of truth for the entire schedule. One SIS integration. I think a lot of people, they say, well, I'm going to do a scheduling tool and then a curriculum tool. And like, for those of you that know SIS, that have gone through the process of integrating with an SIS, it's not always easy, right? You could have customizations in your SIS. There can be different nuances, and having to have 2 or even 3 integrations with your different systems, again, results in our people being focused on data entry, not improvement. And then finally, I think training users on one user interface, right? What does it mean if everyone knows that there's one form to fill out a section, to submit a curriculum proposal, to update a catalog? What are the benefits of you not needing 5 different training guides and training resources and just training people on the same things? Mark and Jenna, I'm curious about why you see the curriculum and scheduling processes as either intertwined, or what is the benefit of sort of having one platform that does these things?
Okay, I'll jump in there. One, our curriculum process right now has been so separated from our scheduling. And so we get new curriculum approved and so on and so forth. And to get it brought over for scheduling and brought over for a catalog, it gets lost in the sauce. And this way we can have it all together. That as it moves through curriculum, it's going to come into the catalog, and then we'll also be able to use it for scheduling and so forth. And that one source of truth, that even though we do have a source of truth with our SIS, this is a source that works together, and that integration, that single integration, is incredibly important, because I've been places before where it's like, oh, well, you can only do this with this one, and you have to do it this way with this other one, and so forth. And the integration that we've seen so far has been phenomenal. And it's across the spectrum. So as we've loaded our schedule and our catalog in that schedule, bringing it over to curriculum has been a piece of cake, because it's already there. And so we haven't had to go back and, okay, well, let's try something new now, or something different, or how are we going to get this piece to talk to the rest of the process we have, and so forth. So that's been phenomenal for us.
What I have loved about this is the Coursedog team and how they built the platform and the solution. So as we were implementing the different products, I would get really frustrated with something and I would say, I do not like how this is working. And I was constantly reminded, Jen, we follow best practices. So we can find a way around it to work for you, but that's not really the best way to do it. And it really started to change the way I was sharing the information with our campus. So yes, we can do this, but this isn't best practice. And it allowed me to kind of reframe what our campus and best practice should look like. So the curriculum, you have to have the courses built before you can build a program. You have to have a program approved before you can build a schedule. And they weren't thinking that way. They were approving programs and we didn't even know what the courses were yet. And then, we would get this information like piecemeal together for the catalog. And then how are we going to build the eval and, for the students to have it? We didn't have any of this information. So it was a lot of like pinging back and forth, different screens, different products, just try to gather all of the information. Now it's all in one place. So even if it is a little, choppy as we're trying to change behavior, we're still able to find it in one place and everyone has access to the same information. So, if a course number or credit hours aren't populating correctly, we go back to the source of truth and say, well, so-and-so entered it and created this section on this day with this credit hours. So then it forces them to go back in to change it so we can change it on the SIS side. So really just kind of retraining here our end users on the different steps and to kind of forces them to plan ahead instead of kind of going backwards and doing everything, starting at the beginning and going back, where it's taking a little more thought and planning on the front end.
I think it's such a great point, Jen, because I think that I think a lot of vendors look at these processes in isolation. And I think oftentimes in the registrar's office, things are, in larger universities, I oftentimes see that you have a scheduling coordinator and you have a curriculum and catalog coordinator, or maybe even a curriculum and a catalog coordinator. And I do think that that's the way, I'm not saying that in a larger institution, that's not the way that it needs to be, but sometimes I wonder, is there enough talking about these processes globally, right? Like we've worked with so many campuses that have these business processes where maybe it's like a course gets approved 2 days before it needs to be scheduled, and then everyone's, all amiss, or maybe it's that, there's duplicate data entry from curriculum to catalog, and then also in the schedule, and there's sort of this breakdown. We really like to approach this as one thing, right? It's the life cycle of curriculum. It's making curriculum something that we iterate on over time. It's not perfect on day one. You mentioned it. No one changes their business process and or adopts a software tool and everything's perfect on day one, right? Everyone knows that. But it's about having the agility to be able to sort of get there over time. Cool. So I think the main, and I think I shared this, but the main things that we normally hear, I think it's about efficiency, visibility, and accuracy of data, right? It's how do we save time to focus strategically? How do we make data-driven decisions about our curriculum processes? How do we enhance sort of the transparency of this information? One place where I can really get a sense of, I can create a configurable report. What's this course look like, and what are its different attributes, and what are the sections associated with it in sort of one place? And I think that this is the general themes that we see. So a little bit about just, for those of you that aren't familiar with Coursedog, both Jen and Mark are Lucy and colleague schools. We support integrations with all major student information systems. So I think Mark talked a little bit about the integration process, but I think one of the really key parts as well of this idea of all-in-one is, what does it look like, whether I have a homegrown SIS or whether I have Banner or PeopleSoft, do I want to support multiple integrations, or is it better to have one, right? And I think for anyone who's in a registrar's office or who's a vice president or a provost at a university, I'm sure that your IT team is strapped right now, right? Everyone's IT team are so, so short on bandwidth right now with all the things that are going on. And I think that one of the main drivers for why schools consider this is either maybe a school has an existing product and it's not working and the integration's breaking, or maybe they are trying to adopt a new solution. And I think that by having one system that supports this and one integration, you really cut down on the amount of work that your IT team has to do. There's not this switching cost of worrying about different vendors. And I think, these are all great benefits. But, in Coursedog, when I approve a course or when I approve a section, or, this automatically updates the catalog, it automatically updates the SIS. And the idea is to have these systems be fully bidirectionally talking to each other at all times. I'll skip past this one. So I think the one other thing that I really wanted to make sure that we cover today is just talking about, I think so many folks, and I'm already seeing a bunch of, I'm already seeing that folks are asking about this, but what does it look like to actually go through this change management process, right? Because I think so many folks are hesitant about, maybe I have an existing tool, what is it like to take that out? Maybe I don't have anything today, but I'm very, my existing processes, they don't work that well, but they're not broken. How do I convince stakeholders? I'd love, Jen and Mark, if you could talk a little bit about change management. How did you really work with Coursedog's customer success team to sort of galvanize this change on campus?
So I'll talk about the process that we did here. And I know this is a little different than how I would have handled it at my previous institution. Here, I think people were just really hungry for help. They were hungry for a solution, and what they were doing in the past wasn't working, and everybody acknowledged it. So I came in new, and people were just, I just solved to them, I solved all their problems. So they were very eager to learn about it. That was not my experience with other implementations where people were kind of more set in their ways. There were more nuances. There was maybe a more complex curriculum, more complex unwritten rules. But really what I was able to do here was saying, okay, what we had is no longer relevant. Like we hadn't really updated anything in years. And so I was really looking at, this is what it looks like to be a registrar. And this is how a registrar functions in this century. And this is how we're going to move the institution forward with student success. And that's what it's going to look like. I started with the catalog. And when we implemented the catalog, I did it all by myself. Now, do I recommend that? No, but I was new to the institution and I needed to learn. And what better way to learn than to read the entire catalog? So I worked on the catalog in the evenings outside of work at home. During COVID, everything was shut down. I couldn't go anywhere. But that was really me. I said, I'm going to get this up and running the first time. And that way users can see the product. They can see what it looks like. They can see how easy it is to use. And then that was kind of their first exposure to the Coursedog platform. From there, we went to scheduling because, we didn't have a classroom scheduling system. So we were able to kind of load everything in and do the schedule. And as we were doing that, we have organically trained end users. So we identified super users, I can't remember what we even call them now. But we set aside time and worked one-on-one with our schedulers, our department schedulers, to teach them how to go in and enter the course data and how to do all of that. And then they started training others in their unit. So not only were they seeing the catalog now, but then they were also seeing how the scheduling works. And what we decided to do, I'm sure there's other schools that have people who own classrooms, and really Chaminade owns the classrooms, departments don't. And so we kind of took away that completely and said, if someone else booked this room, you need to pick up the phone and you need to call that person and work it out. Before, we were just fielding all of the complaints and becoming the person that decided who gets the room. And that's not, I mean, we're a Catholic Marianist university. That is not how we do business. We gain consensus, we do what's best for everyone. And so it really took it back to what our mission to say, we need to sit around and talk about this. What I always say though, the platform does not remove communication. You still have, and I think a lot of people thought, well, I just put it in there, that's all I need to do. You still have to pick up the phone and make decisions and talk to one another. But this process allowed others to see who else maybe needed the room. And if we had, if there were 3 people in the room, then we really needed to give it to the section that had 20 students registered for the course. Before they would have never seen all of that information. That wasn't visible to them. So we started with, after the curriculum, or after the catalog, we went to the curriculum, and then we launched not the curriculum, the schedule. And then we launched the events because we also needed student groups to be able to reserve the classroom space. So as we launched the events, we also gave access to facilities, to security, to IT, and then everyone started going to that platform to see who was in the classrooms, when they could unlock, when they could reserve, when they could block out times to do maintenance. So we started to get more users in that way. And then the next piece is actually the curriculum, which is going to kind of tie it all together. And then the forms, the final piece, which basically we're taking every form that we have on campus and going through this platform. And that was the easiest sell ever, because everybody has already seen how easy and friendly and intuitive Coursedog is, that it didn't take any convincing to say we could do it. The customer support on the Coursedog side, I was able to pull almost every report. I was able to extract almost all of the data on my own to give to Coursedog to help implement and go through the process. The only piece that I have really had to rely on IT to help with is the integration piece. And that is a huge blessing, knowing that IT has a lot of projects and a lot of priorities, and I'm not always at the top, and I have a lot that I'm able to take care of a lot of this on my own. So in the Ellucian world, we call that the funky tech user. And that's kind of how it is here. Like I plan to kind of get all of this launched and understand the back end, and then have my team manage it. So we're still kind of in the launch phase, but the customer support there are other products that do what Coursedog does. There are other products that are bigger, that have been around longer. But what Coursedog does is that I think stands out is their customer support. So it is completely transparent. They provide a lot of information. They keep you updated on what your homework is to get things implemented. If you run into problems, there's somebody that's willing to jump on a call. Their knowledge hub is fantastic as well. So as we kind of get used to the systems, we're constantly getting updates on how it's making it better. They listen when you have ideas. You don't get that with bigger companies. As companies grow, sometimes you lose that, and we have not lost that with Coursedog. So I would say, out of all of the change management and the customer support, Coursedog stands out because of the way they continue to support even after the implementation, even after the launch.
I would echo a lot of what Jennifer said. The customer support is phenomenal. I've never, ever worked with a company that is so interested in doing what needs to be done in order to make things work, or to understand what Ashland University is like, and why we do the things we do, and so forth. Many times what I faced is, oh, well, you're going to have to do this instead because, we can't do that, or, whatever. And that's never been the case. There are just a few things that they've said, well, we don't have that, but, we're going to put that in development and see if we can get that to happen, and so forth. And they've already brought some stuff forward. We just finished this thing. And so now you can use this, and that's phenomenal. As opposed to sometimes what we get is, well, we know what's best, and so we'll give you what you need, when really that's not the case. In terms of change management at Ashland, it was kind of, here's the change, now manage it. Because our upper level decision makers kind of said, this is what we're going to go with, and let's do it. And fortunately, for the catalog and curriculum, this was the program we were already wanting to get in the first place. We just hadn't had the opportunity to tell them yet, and they decided it for us, which was okay. I mean, we're glad with that. So we have not done the best job. It's kind of been by a fire hose scenario, and we have had some fires that we've had to put out with people concerned about it. But once they get in and start using it, then it's kind of the aha moment, and they feel more comfortable. We've tried to do some changes over the course of time. Our curriculum used to be all paper and used to pass through a gazillion hands, and sometimes it would get lost or somebody's signature wasn't on it or whatever. And so it was a nightmare. So then we moved to our portal system, which we were just kind of hijacking some other software and making a workflow out of it. Well, that was fine, except it's extremely clunky, and now you lose it in that. And so everybody's like, well, I don't have that version. I can't see this or whatever. And so I keep saying, well, better things are coming. We've moved from the dinosaur age into a little bit more modern age, and now we're going to do it to where you can see everything very clearly. So excited about that, particularly for the curriculum.
Yeah, no, it's that. Thank you so much for sharing both of those stories, Jen and Mark. I think it's really helpful for the folks joining us. And I think I love what you said, Jen, about, and we're open about this. There are other vendors, I think, that do pieces of what Coursedog does, and I am sure that there are campuses that they have done them well at, right? I think there are scheduling vendors, there are curriculum vendors. I think the unique thing about, that the way that we like to think about ourselves at Coursedog is we want to be innovation partners with the university that we're working with, right? I think there's elements about Coursedog today that are unique on the market. There is sort of this, we do a lot, both scheduling and curriculum in one platform, and I think that's unique. I think our customer support model and really, providing unlimited support, not charging customers for support, is a little bit unique. But I think the thing that excites me when I wake up in the morning is the idea that I get to work with schools on really building what the future looks like, right? Because I think that it's not just about, when we implement any software tool, and I'm sure many of us have seen this with our SIS platforms or with other softwares that they've used, that you don't want to be stuck on a solution that isn't innovating and growing, right? And it's totally true. Coursedog is a young company, and we're only working with like 90 universities when many folks maybe have hundreds. But I think that where we really see a lot of the differentiation is we want to provide you a great solution, not just this year, but in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, and to continue to sort of innovate together. And that's why that's why I love working with both of you folks, because I know that we've just made tons of, there's a lot of new directions that we can go in the future, and that gets us excited too. So
I would just jump in on that
go ahead.
Real quickly and say, so many of our systems within education are still focused on the way education used to be. That in the old days, you had classes all started on the same day, ended on the same day, went for the same length of time. They were all, in a classroom, chalkboards, all that kind of stuff. And then, we had to get creative. We had to get inventive. And so we've invented, different types of schedules, different lengths of terms, all those kinds of things, different ways that we're giving the information and so forth. That's the agile part of Coursedog that I love, because they're changing with us rather than saying, well, you take what you have and try to fit it into our model. Because we've all had to hijack our system somehow to make these new things that maybe we're not even in favor of. Maybe somebody above us is just saying, here, this is what we've got to do. Our competitors are doing it, we can do it, that we have to make them fit. this is something that changes with us, and I think that's going to be so great for many, many years to come.
I was just going to add, I want to give a little story, like a concrete example of how Coursedog is impacting our campus. So, as we're rolling out these products, student development came and said, hey, we need this for our student handbook. We need the exact same thing. Can Coursedog do it? Legal said, we need a place to store contracts so we can look at all these legal documents. Can Coursedog do it? And then the last one was the provost office, as they're coming up with curriculum review. Now that they can see where we're storing the curriculum and it's all managed in that space, they want to use it to manage accreditation and reviews that happen. So people on campus are starting to see this as like this all-in-one solution. And now they're asking, like, can it do this? Can it do that? And I think that's neat, because those are typically people that really don't have their hands in the platforms that we're currently using, but just people talking about it has really kind of sparked this new interest and excitement on what it could do for them.
And that part gets me excited, because I think there's so much of, what our vision is at Coursedog is to try to help rebuild a lot of these antiquated systems that results in university staff being bundled, having so much paper, so much inefficiency, so much invisibility, and turning folks like yourselves into ideally superheroes, right? Like, we want to be strategic. We want to be like, nobody wants to be just moving papers or just building the schedule, right? And I think that in particular, because I see a lot of the folks who are here actually are folks who I know in some form or another use some other vendors, and folks always say, well, what's the benefit of switching software? And I think there's definitely a benefit. I think there's a lot of reasons why there's benefits of switching software to Coursedog in different ways. But I also think being able to reimagine these business processes, right? Being able to sort of innovate and have a discussion with folks around the table with a tool that they genuinely like, and say, what's the way that we should be doing this? And then what could the future look like, is just so much more exciting than the sort of work that would normally occur of just crunching and doing, and but yeah, that was great. I will stop going waxing poetic, but yeah, and I think we talked about this quite a bit, but I know that we're getting up on time. I want to leave time in case folks have any questions. I don't know if we're going to have full time to do a demo for today, but just want to see if we've got a great attendance, but not that many questions coming in. So folks who are in here, feel free to speak up, ask any, fire away.
I would say ask for a demo if you haven't. And I think Ashland probably has the record for demos. I think we did 8 or 10 demos, something like that, over the course of time. And there was never oh, you've already seen this, we can't do it again, kind of thing. And so they will demo till the cows come home. And so I would encourage you to do that, but a demo is very important. Yep.
I would also, to users or to individuals that are thinking about it, and the thought of switching entire platforms and consolidating can seem very daunting, but I would ask you to really think about what you've compromised with your current vendor. What practices and what solutions have you just said, okay, we'll do it that way because that's how you've packaged it, that you really don't like? I feel like we just give to whatever they say is how it's going to be. And we forget that there's other ways to do it. We just kind of are accustomed to saying, okay, well, that's how we have to do it because that's how it's designed here. And then ask Coursedog, like, how can we do what we really want to do on this platform? And then it makes it worthwhile to go through that and really to clean up and really move to the way you want to do business, not the way that the other vendor is telling you this is how we do it.
Yep. I think we've got questions. Great question. Are there ways to alert or block certain schedule building habits, such as creating overload schedules for faculty that are built in or other sorts of rules? Great question. I don't know, Jen or Mark, if you folks want to, this concept of rules might be, I don't know if you guys want to go for it, but I feel like you're both experts, but I could also do this. So yeah, Coursedog has this concept called scheduling rules. So for anyone who isn't familiar with Coursedog, there's a lot of folks think about scheduling as room scheduling, right? Room optimization. There's tools that have been around, help you to manage your rooms. Coursedog has this other piece, which we call section scheduling, right? And the idea of it is that there's this whole process where folks in departments or units create their sections and the times and the instructor assignments. And sometimes that's the wild, wild west, right? Like folks will just send a spreadsheet to a registrar or to an approver, and then there's a lot of back and forth manual work, or maybe it's a part of the process where they double book things, or bio 101 and chem 101 are taught at the same time when it's not supposed to be. And in Coursedog, you can enforce all these different types of rules. So we can create non-standard meeting patterns. I could say, here's what the meeting patterns are that folks are allowed to abide by. Here's what, a double booking looks like. Here's where I can track the faculty's sort of, I think per your question, there's some basic sort of teaching load calculations. But the idea of this is that rather than scheduling in an Excel spreadsheet, Coursedog provides a single interface where our end users, our departments or our units or whomever they are, can come in and actually build the schedule in one single dashboard, right? So they can go into their department. When they go and they click the meeting pattern, it'll only show them the standard meeting patterns, right? If, for example, there's an error as a part of building it, hey, no instructor is assigned here. This will give them all that ability. And it can get a lot more complex than this. So I think I mentioned this basic case, but maybe I'll have a case where these two different sections, for example, need to be taught at a different time or the same time or whatever it may be. And if that is actually violated, so if Bio 101 and Chem 101 schedule their class at the same time, the system will automatically trigger an alert so that you don't have to be holding the bag at the end of the scheduling process, right? So imagine if folks could just come in here, right? They build their schedules, they can see all of these sort of errors or non-standard meeting patterns, right? And then if you want that to go through an exception request, it can go through a workflow, right? So there's some things like maybe if there's a non-standard meeting pattern, it will get sent to Jen or it will get sent to Mark, and they can ultimately make the decision on whether there's an approval or not. But you don't have to go searching for that information. It would all be available in one single dashboard, so you can see all of the items that you actually need to review and get back a lot of your time in making sure that folks haven't made errors as a part of building their sections. Jen or Mark, I don't know if you want to speak any more to this concept of rules, but.
Not with the rules specifically, but when you are hearing all of this, it's a lot of information. And if you're someone that can think ahead, like, oh, these are really great things, like great. But the way that we've implemented all of these on our campus is to give the bare minimum. And then as users get comfortable with it, we'll start expanding what options and what features we use. But to give them all of this at once would have been completely daunting had they never seen a software solution ever. So I kind of keep these in my back pocket. And when conversations start to happen, I'm like, oh, we can do that. Let me turn it on. And then we slowly introduce these other features to the group.
Yeah, we're doing the same kind of thing rather than bringing the hammer down on everything and then, letting them pray that we give them some opportunities to do some stuff. We're kind of working into it slowly, and some options we just haven't fully fleshed out because one, we haven't thought about those things, because there was no easy way to manage those kinds of scenarios. Like the one I know that was mentioned a lot in our training, in our demo was, do you have 90% of your courses happening between 9 and noon on on the right, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Well, how in the world are you ever going to know that staring at a spreadsheet? That is so very, very hard, but you can see it visually in here, and it makes such a big difference. And then you can start to say, well, wait a minute, let's pare that down a little bit. And so when somebody tries to go in and schedule something and they've hit that 90% window or whatever, which I know that Justin's showing you, that then it's like, oh, it doesn't keep them from going on. It just sends out a warning saying, this is kind of going beyond what we want to do and so forth. And I'm looking forward to those kinds of things, because we don't typically take the time to work out that and do that, because the only way to do it is stare at a piece of paper and figure it out. And here it's just visually prepared for you.
Well, I will give folks back the last 2 minutes of their time. Jen and Mark, I'm so grateful for you joining us today. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone who joined. Feel free, if you are interested in more information about Coursedog, or just want to have a conversation about curriculum or scheduling or any of these topics, feel free to reach out. But thanks everyone so much for your time. Have a great week. Bye everyone. Thank you, Mark and Jen. Bye.